Welcome back, everybody. We know folks will start trickling in, but we're going to get started with our mid-morning programming, and we have got a good one. Our next panel is Training and Learning, Remote Support and Collaboration, Augmented Work Instructions. We've got Mike Stevens, Chief Revenue Officer of Atheer, is going to moderate this one and bring up the panelists now.
No particular order. While they're getting settled, welcome everybody. I feel like this is kind of like a, school in session. We should say, could everybody move forward given the size of the room and the people, but we'll definitely work around it. They're getting settled. Again, welcome to the, I was laughing, it's the green track, right? Training and learning, remote support, collaboration, augmented work instructions. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there as we go through it. Unfortunately, we got a terrific panel that I've got the pleasure and honor of working with today. I'm going to introduce you to the players, but we have spent some time as a group talking, and I know one of the things we wanted to accomplish is to make sure through the discussion and items that we speak about today, the technology, the AI, AR, how it applies, that you, the audience, get to walk away with some real-world experience from these folks that you can take back to your company. And where they're going to go through some of the hurdles and challenges, so hopefully you don't have to go through some of those by hearing what they have to say today. So we're going to focus on, again, each of them have a particular application and case with anything from remote training or support through clinical testing, trials, various backgrounds. We'll get into all of them, and as I introduce the players, you're going to recognize the company names that they're with. And of course, you've got their full background and bios in the book. So let me just start with introducing some of the players. Jorge Mejia from Tetra Pak. And you just raise your hand because I know we're not in the kind of the order. Rab Ali from Ryder. I'm sure we're all familiar with Ryder. Kelly Greer from Wayfair. Stacy Hall from GE Healthcare. And Darryl Wright from Southern Company Power Utility. So again, I'm sure you're all familiar with who they are. And what I'm going to do is we thought we'd kind of give it context, so we're just going to kick it off with a couple of people going through, again, their application, what kind of trials and tribulations that they've gone through applying, the technology, and then, ultimately coming back, hey, how did it impact your organization, and then kind of drilling upward, ultimately what kind of impact did we have on the entire organization or company. So with that, if you would, Jorge, please kick us off and give us a little bit of background. We're going to take about 5 minutes each to go through that, and then we're going to open it up to discussions for everybody in the audience.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. So Tetra Pak, for those that doesn't know the company that much, so we manufacture all the cartons and everything to allow our food and beverage customers to pack their products in this type of packs. And in the services area, which I'm responsible for here in the USA and Canada, we focus a lot on innovating on how we can support our customers remotely, because that's the quickest and the cheapest way of giving technical support. So 6 years ago, we started a journey where we focused on open the remote support applications, a remote support center for our internal people, so service delivery engineers who are working on site, but also expanding that to our customers. So how we can allow our customers to be in contact with our specialists so they can troubleshoot issues in the fastest way. Every time the machines are down, we are not producing. So we first came with the piloting 6 years ago, the Microsoft HoloLenses. So we focus a lot on the hardware and not in the way of working with it. So we purchase HoloLenses, we deploy a pilot, and we learn a lot from, okay, it makes sense, it's a really nice hardware to have, but physically for our people on site, it was really exhausting to wear the HoloLenses at that time. I mean, I think it was the first development that Microsoft did on that type of hardware. So our people really gave us feedback on, guys, it's really exhausting to wear basically 1.5 pounds of equipment on my head. So we try a lot. We try with different type of combinations of hardware, and also connectivity was a difficult issue. And then we step away from any wearable device, and we came back to the basics. Basically, we use our iPhones. So our people on site has an iPhone that we provide to them, and then we focus a lot on the applications that we can have to help them to be accessible on remote support. So then we work with a company to develop an app that we can use and have additional features rather than video call. Because video call, we can use FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever the communication application we have. But now we work with this company, Sidecall, in a matter of, okay, what can we do and which applications are missing in a specific tool that our engineers can use, our customers can use, but also the guy who is receiving the call can also use. At the end, the interaction between the receiver of the call and the person doing the call is very important. So we focus a lot on that. We keep evolving on that matter. Now we have expanded our contact center. It's 24/7 globally, and we have global reach on the remote support application. But we kept going back to using our mobile devices and focusing a lot on the software. We learned that the hardware, at that time, it is very difficult. I have seen today more development on the hardware side, but if you haven't been a field service engineer, wearing anything on your head is quite difficult behind a hat or the safety matter. So we focus a lot on that, and we learn a lot from the experience, and we move from focusing on the hardware and then moving into focusing on the software and the applications we can develop to support that.
Outstanding. And so it sounds like, I think we're going to hear a common theme as we go through some of these. So again, the practicality of, I mean, there's some great technology. We're all walking around the floors downstairs, and we're looking at great technology, but again, a little different, right, when we go to actually apply it in our everyday business. And Rob, we're going to have him just go through, again, a different fleet management and support. It is with the logistics of Ryder, you can imagine some of the things that he's had to look at and overcome. So, Rob, if you would just give us a little bit on what you've done, and we'll continue through the group, and we'll open up to questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And so with Ryder, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of equipment out there on the road, and you see them. You see a lot of them. You don't see all of them. Sometimes they're a little difficult to tell that they're Ryder trucks. But in the division that I work in, we have 3 operational priorities, and I'm going somewhere with this. So we have our first operational priority is safety, and then we do quality, and then speed is last. So those are the 3 things that we teach technicians coming into Ryder on day one. Safety is the most important, then we do quality, and we do speed. And that's also kind of given us a little bit of a framework as far as how we choose to, from a strategy standpoint, what training paths do we go down? What projects do we accept? And so one of the first ones that we looked at from a safety standpoint really worked out extremely well for us, which is kind of if you're familiar with tractors and trailers, there's a segment or a part of the tractor where it backs up and meets the trailer, and that's called the fifth wheel, and that's what marries the tractor and trailer together. And it's an extremely important piece of equipment. It's also difficult to train on because you can't get underneath it. It's attached to the truck, and there are certain lubrication points and whatnot that are underneath there that are important from a maintenance standpoint that technicians hit when they're doing PM inspections and whatnot. And it's been historically just been very difficult for us to train on these lubrication points. And we were lucky enough to work with one of our OEM providers and secure a 3D rendering of that fifth wheel. And through utilizing the Microsoft HoloLens 2 device, we were able to film in a Ryder shop. And I will tell you, if you can imagine what a Ryder shop looks like, and we try to run a very clean ship, but you go downstairs and you look at all of the pictures of all of these workplaces, and they all look like clean rooms to me. A Ryder shop is not that clean. It's not that quiet, and so when we're doing our thing, we try to do it in the Ryder shop, and we were able to plant or place that 3D rendering of that fifth wheel, and then bring it up and have the instructor rotate that fifth wheel on its axis. And for our training purposes at Ryder, we have been having the hardware on the worn by the trainer, not the trainee. We have 5,000 technicians scattered all over North America, and right now for where we're at in our journey, it's not really feasible to put that many headsets on that many technicians. And so we have our trainers wear those and then broadcast that augmented environment to the technicians no matter where they're at. And so one of the kind of the unforeseen circumstances of having tractors and trailers meet and on the fifth wheel hundreds and hundreds of times is eventually what you get is a very, very, very sharp surface due to the friction. And it's dangerous, and technicians can cut themselves quite easily and quite seriously if we're not careful. And so from a safety standpoint, being able to bring in that fifth wheel, get it up, and it's heavy as can be, and float it on its axis and let technicians see the underside of what one of those actually looks like, it sounds trivial, and it's not. This is an important piece of equipment that has to be maintained properly in order for our customers to be safe and share the road with you all. And so we've experienced a lot of very positive responses from our technicians that have been able to complete that very, very brief module. It's only just a few minutes, but if you're familiar with Kirkpatrick and our level 1 evaluations afterwards on that training, they really, really love it. And so that's something we're still calculating the overall ROI on it. But from an impression standpoint, our technicians really, really like that type of training. We've tried lots of different wearables and whatnot on our technicians, and you may as well try to put one on a cat. They just in our environment it just doesn't work for them, and so the wearables are what we've been putting on our trainers. So.
Fantastic. I love the shout out and challenge. So for the vendors that are downstairs, if any of y'all up here listening, right, a nice challenge to us in the industry to really shape our solutions, get involved with our clients and customers at a whole different level, because we just need to extend our capabilities, and then when we get into environments like that, practicality of headsets in order to get the proper telemetry, right, bring it through, just critical. So hopefully we got some of those folks listening as we go. I wanted to just jump over to Kelly Greer, who's with Wayfair, and she is knee-deep in global delivery of training and the services and sales enablement, and fascinating story about what she's been going through. So if you could just kind of bring us through, and then we'll open this up.
I love that you say knee deep. Sometimes it feels like I'm eyeball deep.
Okay,
in it.
fair enough.
So if you are a learning and development practitioner, you're always being asked to do more with less, to drive a better return on the investment, and to show measurable results. So I'm going to do a little look back to look where we are now, because this was an iterative process. And I would give my company a huge shout out that it is a place where I'm free to innovate and improve, and we don't always get it right the first time. We fail forward, we pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we try again. So our first challenge was we were a very heavy ILT environment, meaning the instructor, sage on a stage, we're going to talk at you. So as AI tools started to come in, both authoring tools and generative AI or chat tools, our team immediately thought, these replace me. So we had to overcome that change mindset of, it's not replacing you, it's changing how you do your work. And in a constrained human capital environment, meaning I have less people, it actually makes your job easier to do. So that was going on. Then our C-suite, we're always looking at how do you deliver a world-class customer experience. In onboarding, how do you get people to be proficient faster? And how do you do that with less training resources? And in this, we also started to take on some offshore partners. So then we have the need to be able to give our offshore partners the cultural competencies and experiences so that they understand our North American customer journey, as well as be able to provide real-time coaching and assistance. So that's the stage. What did we do? At our company, we're using the Google suite of products. So Gemini, I heard someone on one of the stages yesterday, do you talk to your AI and say please and thank you? I do. I tell her every day, hi Gemini, and thank you Gemini. So along the way, we've learned how to write really effective prompts. Once I got the team on board with how to write a gem, they now can take an SOP, they can upload it with the right prompt, letting it know what they need out of it for a training outline. Is it a script for a video? And in a click, I save hours of instructor time or learning experience design time. We then also have, we use an AI authoring tool, e-learning authoring tool called Synthesia. Amazing. The one change at Wayfair is we're always changing. It's a consistent environment of change because we're relentless in our pursuit of improving customer experience. So our teams are always looking for ways to move the needle, which means our policies change, our internal software to run those policies change. Prior to having this AI authoring tool, if I made a video-based learning, I'd have to be concerned, do I still have access to the same voice? Do I have to fly the talent in? And how do I get those changes done and turned around quickly? With this new tool, we improved productivity by 76%, and we're saving about $800 per video because we're able to re-render very, very quickly. So that's been a very exciting development. Now on to the next phase of that is how do we take some of these things and make it immersive? One of the areas is doing 3D rendering of our products so our agents can really see where the hidden compartments are. Because if you're calling in, one thing we get all the time is you sent me a headboard, where's the rest of the bed? Well, it's usually in the zipper compartment in the back. But if you haven't, you're sitting in a country where that's not an experience for you to get a bed in the mail, we need to be able to show you. You need to be able to explain that to our customers. So we're doing immersive learning there. We're taking our agents inside of our fulfillment centers so they can see what's happening, so they can explain it to the customers. One of the most exciting spaces that I'm really enjoying is dipping our toes into spatial computing. So one of the problems I had was how do I monitor and provide real-time coaching and feedback to this global workforce at a cohort level? I may have 30 people in a cohort. How do I coach and support each one of them? Well, we spent a lot of time doing proof of concept and researching getting a video planar wall. The price tag on that was about $1 million. In the current macro environment, it was not the time to go ask for $1 million. Right. So I like to call myself tech adjacent. I have very good friends in our tech space who are always innovating and improving. Some of the people that were on this stage, when you're close to those people in R&D, those engineers, if they understand some of your use cases, they can point you with some great suggestions. One of which was spatial computing. We use the Apple Vision Pro. The interface of that, one of the women who was up here before said one of her biggest roadblocks was corporate IT. The Apple Vision Pro, single sign-on, super easy to launch, runs on Wi-Fi, no big cables, and I'm able to pull up multiple windows, have each learner in a window. I can see their screen. I can make that screen as huge as I want it to be, and I can talk to them and give them real-time coaching. So that's some of the things we're doing at Wayfair.
Fantastic, and I saw Stacy nodding her head on so many things. I want to give some and Darryl some opportunity. We got a little bit of time, so how does that relate to what you're doing? And any questions? We'll kind of open it up between the panel because there's so many similarities and things that you're looking at. But just thoughts.
Yeah, from a training point of view, we're also seeing you know, one challenge in putting people in VR headsets is they feel isolated. And certainly there's situations where you want to have that virtual environment where it needs to be all encompassing. But if you're doing training on a piece of equipment, you don't necessarily need to have a digital twin of the area where the equipment is, right? You just really need to learn on this one piece. And one of the things that we're prototyping is in a classroom setting, having the Vision Pro on keeps you from being isolated. It lets you, you know, I can still see you're sitting over here, and Jorge's on this side, and so I can see the classroom, I can see the instructor. They may have a physical object, and they may have the physical model that you're looking at, but then I've got my virtual model here that I can take apart, that I can do whatever, take tests. We're not cheating off each other. We're not loading answers, right? But most importantly, the people seem to not feel as isolated or self-conscious even, you know, when they have the headset on, because I mean that's a real consideration. And again, it does have its place, but not all the time. And so we're finding that to be a good, depending on the training environment, to be a good solution.
Great call up.
Agree. Stacy, some thoughts?
In regards to Synthesia, because that is also a platform that we use as well, it has changed the game for us in how we deliver our information to our customers. More so when it comes to explaining, I think for me, we had a cleaning module. If you're familiar with hospitals, we have JCO, and JCO is our regulatory system, and when they find something that they hone in on, they want you to focus and they want you to fix it. Sure. So for us, cleaning our anesthesia machines, and most of our equipment has been such a huge deal for this year. So what we're using now is Synthesia, and walking through not only just how to clean, but the different parts and pieces, as well as using 3D modeling and augmented reality, encompassing that on our Articulate Rise platform as well. So we can deliver it to all of our internal and external customers. So.
Outstanding. And you've each brought up journey, which I think is one of, because truly we are on this digital transformation journey, all of us. Just curious for the group before we open it up, what would you say the single most impact or impediment really to that journey? I mean, you've all mentioned it's taken amount of time to get things rolled out. I mean, do you find that it's more cultural, more technology? What are some of the things that are like slowing you down? I know all of you probably have in your heads, in a perfect world, if I had these things, we're rocking and rolling. But there's things getting in the way. Just curious, throw it out, anybody wants to answer.
I'd say for us, it was just the fear, like where do you start? It's
Okay.
overwhelming. There's so many vendors, so many products. Right. Where do you start? Mm-hmm. And am I gonna fail because all eyes are on me?
Right. Jorge, I saw you.
Yeah. Now, for us was mainly understanding that an IT project, because at the end it's a new software, new application that involve IT, it was indeed an IT project. It wasn't. It's a people project
Yes.
with an IT component.
Right.
Yes.
So
Right.
what we learned from that experience is that we thought that having a wearable on a field service engineer was a great idea. I mean, how come it's not? I mean, you can see what you're thinking, the specialist can teach you, can show you what you're saying and what you're seeing. And then we say, guys, we never thought on the environment they are, how uncomfortable it could be. I mean, we never asked the engineers, hey, what do you think about it? So the people component on any transformation project, I think is 80% of the success. You can have an amazing tool, you can have an amazing hardware, an amazing software application, but if the people doesn't buy it, you will not get it. So I think that portion, when we understand that any transformation needs to focus first on the people, and then developing that need into, okay, what hardware or software can I apply for that need, then you might have some more chances of success. But when we don't count the people, then you will never gonna get the results you want for a transformation project.
I think if I can jump on that a little bit, and I know that it's been mentioned a lot, but you have to involve the people who are going to use the product, because you need funding, so you got to have the high level management to get the funding. That has to be there. But when it comes to actual development and deployment, as much touch points that you can make, if you can do like if you're training on a specific procedure, if you can get out and do that procedure, or the people that are developing it, that's what you need to do. They need to understand what the pain that the people are going through, or the specific, nobody says this, but you have to do this thing right here, right? That's what's going to make it successful. And it helps them to buy into it, to have ownership of it, because if they have helped develop it along the way and even can help, change a little bit of maybe what you're doing, then they're going to be more willing to put that headset on someone, as opposed to the attitude of, well, we've got to put this headset on. It's we want to put this on, because they had a hand in it. So, that may not be quite what you were saying, but if you can involve the people actually using and putting that on people's heads, that will get you really far in making it a success instead of sitting on a shelf.
Absolutely. Stacy, any other thoughts, comments? I know you come from a little different background than us in the medical and clinical. I'd just be curious as well what you're running into and the convenience of technology. I mean, it shouldn't be about the technology. I think for most of us, we'll say we're here to deliver business value and so forth, but it's the very technology that's the tools and things that get us there. So just curious what you've run into in your space.
For us, I'm going to just build off of what Jorge said. It is people driven.
Okay.
Keep the people in mind first, and that includes our clinical educators that are actually on site, as well as our customers that we are delivering our education to. For the most part, that would be our major thing, is to have the people have the buy-in first. Our C-suite and our leadership, they're pretty much on board. They understand that we have to deliver concise and quality training in order for that to show in how people utilize our products. So the buy-in at the top, at the C-suite level, is not really as big as a deal as I would say the buy-in from the actual consumer level for us. Okay. So definitely our customers, and being customer driven and making sure that they are with us every step of the way helps with that.
I'd be curious from each of us, and then we're going to open it up. We've got plenty of time for other questions, but we've heard a lot about the devices, right? The devices answer me together. I'm curious on the other end of that, because again, so what do we create? We create more data, more information, things, and then we got to assimilate that and translate that through the organization. So I would just be curious, on the back end of this, the content creation, the things that you need to really, make the applications, sing and deliver and so forth. How has that been in your respective backgrounds, just, getting what you need to on the other end to make it really useful? I know, Rob, we talked about a number of things. I'm just curious.
Well, I don't know if this is your experience or your experience, but the digital assets out there are just not growing on trees. Yes. And, we work very closely with a lot of our OEMs, and they're able to provide what they can, but you just really want that 3D rendering of that turbo, or this particular type of tire and whatnot. And so one of the things that I wasn't prepared for when we started this journey was just the lack of availability of really good digital assets that we can bring in. So that's still a challenge for us today.
Anybody else care to comment?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty huge part of any project, actually. Maybe even more so than the programming, because even if you do have a 3D model, you probably can't use it in the headset, right? You've either got to completely optimize it or just completely redo it, because it's going to be easier than trying to take a CAD model, especially for us. Even if we had a laser scan of the areas, it was a great starting point, But in creating a digital twin, you have to redo it because a laser scan has, you know, 1 billion polygons for a single pipe, and that's obviously not going to work. The 3D modeling is definitely a place, and unfortunately too, that's another place where for programming, you know, you can kind of pull in some different resources if you need to. 3D modeling is an art, you know, you're going to have to either have someone who can do that, you know, or contract out, and that it definitely becomes an issue, and it's definitely a lot more than you might think it is, I believe.
I can appreciate that, Ashley. Thank you. What I want to do is we got a good amount of time, and I know you're all on a journey out there in the audience, and you probably have some great questions. Couldn't have a better group of people and a broad spectrum of what they do. So it's hard for me to see hands. I don't know if we got somebody out there with a microphone, or we could just stand up. But any questions for the group who have gone through it that you know we might be able to share their experiences and what you might be going through? Oh, we got one over there.
Hi, my name's Pedro Jimenez. I work for Tokyo Electron. And speaking on more training and learning, I'm surprised I haven't heard about more of a blended learning approach. Something I'm going through right now is I manage online courses in our LMS and that digital delivery, and how I can incorporate more of these emerging technologies into a blended learning program. I'm wondering if anybody in the panel has implemented that type of style of approach.
So in our onboarding program, that's exactly the journey we've gone on, right? We went from all sage on a stage, we're gonna talk at you for 8 hours a day, to incorporating self-paced learning with activity-based, where we're collecting data on the back end so we can tailor to find and fill knowledge gaps on an individual and cohort level. And within that, we've dropped in the immersive learning objects so they can have that experiential learning coupled with in the flow of work tools via some digital adoption platforms, as well as using the Vision Pro to provide that real-time coaching and feedback. Hopefully that was helpful.
How about anyone else out there? Come on, show of hands. I know you're all going through this. Okay, well, I got one still. It's interesting, again, in the journey you've gone through, but this notion of, you know, augmented work instructions or guided workflows, as you might have heard from the people. Again, utilizing the information, you know, once you get it. Curious, what's been your experiences with that? I think, Rob, you had some we talked about, but.
Yeah. I guess one of my biggest challenges when you talk about just straight digital procedures and what I have seen is, and it doesn't, at least for me, it doesn't allow for, it's really good for the how, but it really doesn't, and again, in what I've seen, it doesn't really help address the why. And when you're training on a critical skill or a task, it's that why is important. And so when you're going through this very linear process from a digital procedure standpoint, that's one of the things that, quite honestly, I'm looking for downstairs when I'm down there is, you know, what type of, you know, channeling do you have or branching, so that we can go off into some different, you know, different paths of giving that feedback to the learner. I'm really, really big on why. Why do you torque this nut to this specific, you know, foot-pounds? Why do you do this before you do that? And so that's, if you're a vendor and you've got that capability, please meet me outside, because I would really love to talk with you.
There we go. We can have another discussion.
Yeah.
Anyone else on thoughts again on really, again, we got this content and how we put that in a more of a, you know, guided workflow instruction and really usually translate it through the company. So we've all done a good job within our organizations, but we get the real value, right, when we can translate this through the organization. So any other thoughts?
So We have a digital adoption platform that we use to push out, because obviously our customer service group, they're hourly people. Every time you want to take them out of a productive state, there's a cost to that. And then how do you deliver the return on the investment of taking them out of production to train them? So our digital adoption platform, it's called WalkMe. It overlays with our tools, and you can do shout outs, you can do pop-ups, you can do embedded micro videos. So we're able to tie in, here's the why, or here's what's important. And last year we had over 4 million clicks, and we saved the organization about $2 million by not having to take people out of their productive state to give them in the flow of work training where it's most impactful while they're doing their role.
Anyone else? Right?
On our side, one of the principal feedback we have received from the people on the field, it's about, I cannot have an easy way to access information. When I'm dealing with a piece of equipment that is cost $5 million, the manual is this size, you know, and it's just only the operational manual. So looking out for information when the technician or the customer requires it has been one of the principal feedbacks we have received from them. So now we are exploring, okay, how can we make the life easier for them, knowing their environment, okay? So now we're focusing first, okay, what this guy is doing, in which situation is him or her looking for information, and what type of tools do they have available to search for that information. When it comes that the most basic one is the phone, okay? Because even the laptop in a production environment is really difficult to work with. So we've been now starting to pilot this now that we get into the AI, a solution that can help to, you know, get into our product information database, which is basically where we have everything about our equipment, and then allow the engineer to ask questions to this tool, and this tool just provides the piece of information that he requires. That can be a section of the manual, a page of a manual, and a spare part number, and a specific procedure. So we are not innovating in giving different procedures or changing the manuals as they are, but instead of giving them access or giving them an easier way of finding information within the manuals. So that helps them to, okay, I need to change this spring, then I can ask this tool or this AI application, hey, can you show me the steps to change the spring? And then it pulls the page where you can follow the instructions about it. That's where we're focusing, because when we started experimenting about doing work instructions or changing the way our manuals were, it's a big investment, first of all. It's not gonna change much on how the guys on site access to that information. And third, it's difficult to keep with the evolution of these work instructions. So we analyzed that and we said better work in the access rather than changing how do they use the work instructions. And that's where we're experimenting now on that matter.
So it's that kind of worker execution piece, right, on the back end that we're trying
accessing to the info.
Exactly, right, because we're now creating and collecting information that, you know, maybe hasn't been done in the past with the new devices that we have and so forth. But we're not on an island, and the last thing you want to do is create that, right? So we've got to interact with the existing systems, right, to bring that kind of, again, all down to data and information, right place, right time, right, delivered on the right device to our folks. Anyone else out front? I got one down here. I see one over that way. That's why we wanted everybody.
Somebody in the corner should ask
yeah,
a question,
I think there was
somebody way back there should
there
ask
we
a
go.
question.
So we got to run all the way back after this.
You're going to run a lot. You did your steps.
Swaroop Kali from Atheer. I'm a product and a technology person, so my question is going to be a little technology specific. I actually have two questions, if I can. The first one is, when you're thinking about training, I fundamentally believe every human is unique, which means to say their way they learn, the way they absorb the training content is unique for themselves. So how are organizations thinking about sort of the new age micro-learning models or adaptive micro-learning models where on the job they can really learn, with Gen Zs being a part of the workforce, the way they learn is very, very unique. So that's my first question as to how you're thinking about it. I'll just ask my second question as well. I'm sure there are vendors in the room, vendors downstairs, and something that we have sort of experienced across multiple industries when it comes to any form of XR initiatives. I do understand that the past was very, very different because technology was really not ready. But now with AI plus AR, with connectivity being seamless, including the likes of Starlink, I think this is the time for AR plus AI. But most of the times, it's usually the innovation teams of larger organizations who usually start small pilot projects. And in the past, what the experience of vendors has been that they get stuck, right? And that, needless to say, has cascading impacts on a vendor ecosystem as to how many will survive and continue for a longer period of time. So what would be your guidance to vendors in terms of how we can grow beyond innovations, or how can we work with other functional areas and organizations and not just the innovation teams, where a lot more of this can come to light into the market?
All right,
Thank
so a lot of great information there. I'm going to take the first one. How do we think about micro-learning's new generation of learners who want things in little micro bites? We are using an LXP, a learning experience platform. So we have all modules under 5 minutes that we can push out to the learners. We've gamified it all. Yes. We're using daily knowledge questions. This is a new initiative we're just launching, daily knowledge questions. My senior executives they ask me, Kelly, how do I know what people in the field really know and what they don't know? We can do this through learning questions. We ask them, here's your scenario, how would you handle? They pick an answer, how confident are you? So each team leader can then see how their agents are responding. They can push tailored learning modules out to individual learners. We're actually now just going through a relook at our curriculum. We do it every year. How do we take these larger modules and make them more bite-sized, make them more experiential? How do we tie in the instructor to help with the why? Because that really is a human touch point, because to Jorge's point, they're human beings, not human doings. So we always have to care for the human being. And then when you're talking about how do you take a pilot to scale it to thousands of people, we usually start to think when we're formulating the pilot, we're always thinking, cost. I could run a pilot for one group, but if it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars, I'm not going to get the buy. So I'm always thinking about when I'm piloting, is it scalable? Because that's the key to being able to take innovation and scale it quickly.
Daily knowledge questions.
Yes.
I'm stealing that.
I
promise that's coming back with me.
It's a really exciting piece. We have, and I'm mindful of time, Mike, I'll zip my mouth here in a second. So we have used tags. So we have our new people 0 to 90 days. We know there are questions we have to push to them. Our tenured audience, that it's skill versus will. We have change training. So the algorithms, we use tags on the back end to identify the learners. It will push people the same type of questions until they score 80% accuracy. And we've tied that with a gamification model where you'll earn points and you can challenge, like we can gamble, we were talking about horse races earlier, I can bet you points that I know the answer and you don't, and you can redeem for prizes. So we're trying to pull in the learners through gamifying and engagement to drive results in knowledge retention.
I really want to look at that.
We're going to hold on that second half for the vendor. I just want to make sure because let's get this last question, and if we have time, we'll come back to the vendor question.
Perfect. I appreciate it. My name is Marco. I work for Siemens Smart Infrastructure. Point you made, Jorge, that we're experiencing right now is the use of technologies to help employees and operators to reference documents or material. One of the issues there that we've seen is the lack of drawings to have text or words, or owner's manuals of systems to be specific to the configuration that we do, right? Usually a lot of these owner's manuals are very generic of the software, but not specific to what we actually do. So from the content generation perspective, are there any tools that maybe anyone in the panel has used to quickly generate a lot of the kind of work instructions or digital work instructions to feed these technologies? Because it's a very laborious process, right, to type out, take screenshots of processes or systems. So wanted to ask.
Great question. Anyone in the group?
Yeah, no. Every or any generative AI tool or application that you will use will have a learning curve, okay? It depends a lot on what type of information do you feed to it, the solution. That's the same information that it will, input, output. The tool will not improve that. So it matters a lot what's the input that solution is reading from. So if you have information that is just text or images that are not clear, that they don't have a bunch of description, that's what the solution will give to the user. Now, the first step that we work on when we implemented that was what type of information we had. Fortunately, we have a very nice database of technical manuals, and they are very detailed, so we didn't have that problem. Now, we did have the problem that we have 30 manuals for one equipment, and we need to understand which was the valid one. But there is a lot of effort in the beginning on cleaning up what we want the tool to read from, and because that input is extremely important to what the user will receive. Now, also, the prompts. The prompts are extremely important from Kelly's point. If you use the wrong prompt, you will get the wrong information. And I've seen now a few providers that they have now, instead of the probabilistic generative AI, now the deterministic, and that might help a little bit on, okay, doesn't matter how I ask the question, I might get the same result, but that's still on the early stages of the development, but it matters a lot from when the tool is reading. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And I want to just appreciate everybody's time. We've come to the end of that time, but if you do have other questions, the panelists will be here for a little while. And like they said, the open invitation to speak with them and exchange. It's all about exchange of information. So feel free. If you would just join me in a round of applause. Very difficult to be up here as a panel and share this stuff, and appreciate our group especially. Thank you very much, and like I said, we'll be outside or in front here if you have any other questions.
Thank you to the gentleman for